I sprinted down that hospital hallway like my lungs were on fire. White walls blurred past me, antiseptic smell sharp in my throat, and somewhere ahead, somewhere close, my daughter was dying. The fluorescent lights flickered above, casting shadows that seemed to chase me. I didn't care about dignity, about the people staring. I just needed to reach her. A nurse stepped in front of me, hand on my arm, eyes wide. "Wait," she whispered, urgent and low. "This isn't what you think. It's a trap." I barely heard her. My daughter was in that operating room. Nothing else mattered. I pushed past, heart hammering, and when the door swung open, I saw her, pale, tubes running from her arms, a ventilator breathing for her. I froze. My legs stopped working, and that's when the lawyer appeared behind me, clipboard in hand, pen already uncapped. "You need to sign this now," he said. "Without your authorization, she doesn't go into surgery. If this story grabs you, if you want to know what happened next, subscribe. This channel is brand new, and every day we'll bring you stories like this. Real stories. Stories that cut deep. Hit that subscribe button, because you won't want to miss what comes next. I'm a builder. That's what I've always been. Not the kind with hammers and nails, though God knows I've swung a few of those in my time, but the kind who takes an idea, a vision, a stubborn refusal to quit, and turns it into something real. My company started in a garage 23 years ago. Just me, a laptop that kept overheating, and a dream that everyone told me was too big. I didn't listen. I couldn't afford to. I was a single mother with a baby on my hip, and bills piling up like snowdrifts. So I worked. I built. I sacrificed everything. Sleep, friends, vacations, peace of mind. And it paid off. The company grew. We expanded. We hired people, good people. And I became someone who mattered in this city. Someone people respected. But respect is a funny thing. It doesn't keep you warm at night. It doesn't sit beside you when your daughter's in a hospital bed, fighting for her life. That day, the day everything changed, I wasn't thinking about my company. I wasn't thinking about success or legacy. I was thinking about the little girl who used to fall asleep on my chest, whose first word was "Mama," whose laughter used to fill every corner of our house. Now she was silent, and I would have given anything, everything, to hear her voice again. My daughter, Emma, had always been headstrong, independent. She'd graduated top of her class, gotten a good job at a consulting firm, built her own life. We were close, or so I thought. We had brunch every Sunday, texted throughout the week, shared the small joys and frustrations that make up a life. She was my pride, my joy, the reason I'd pushed through all those impossible years. When I looked at her, I saw proof that the sacrifice had been worth it, that all the missed school plays and late nights and lonely holidays had created something beautiful, a strong, capable woman who could take on the world. But I also saw the distance that had grown between us. Small at first, barely noticeable. She stopped asking about the company, started making excuses to cut our Sunday brunches short. When I'd call, she'd answer, but there was a distraction in her voice, like I was keeping her from something more important. I told myself it was natural. She was building her own life, establishing her independence. That's what I'd raised her to do. But late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I wondered if I'd lost her somewhere along the way. If all those years of working, building, sacrificing had created a chasm I didn't know how to cross. The infection came out of nowhere. One day she was fine, complaining about work stress, texting me memes about terrible coworkers. The next, she was in the ICU, septic, her organs shutting down one by one. The doctor spoke in careful tones, using words like critical and guarded prognosis. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I sat in that waiting room, coffee going cold in my hands, watching families come and go, some left with smiles, some left with tears. I didn't know which I'd be. The waiting room had this particular smell, industrial cleaner mixed with fear and hope. I memorized every stain on the carpet, every crack in the ceiling tiles. There was a vending machine in the corner that hummed constantly, a low, steady drone that became the soundtrack to my vigil. Other families came and went. I watched a young couple hold each other, sobbing with relief when their son made it through surgery. I watched an elderly man walk out alone, his face carved from stone, and I knew his wife hadn't made it. I wondered which story would be mine. When they finally said Emma needed emergency surgery, something experimental, risky, but her only chance, I didn't hesitate. "Do it," I said. "Whatever it takes." The surgeon explained the risks. There was a 30% chance she wouldn't survive the operation. Even if she did, there could be complications, organ damage, long-term effects we couldn't predict. I signed the consent forms with shaking hands, each signature feeling like I was gambling with the most precious thing in my life. But what choice did I have? Doing nothing meant watching her die. At least this way, there was a chance. That's when Marcus appeared. Marcus Holloway, the family lawyer. I'd known him for 15 years. He'd handled contracts, mergers, disputes. He was smooth, professional, always knew the right thing to say. He'd been at family dinners, birthday parties. He'd given Emma advice when she was job hunting, had sent thoughtful gifts on holidays. My daughter trusted him. I trusted him. He was more than a lawyer. He was family, or close enough. "There's paperwork," he said, walking fast beside me as I headed toward the operating room. His shoes clicked against the linoleum, a sharp, insistent rhythm. "Standard authorization forms. You need to sign before they can proceed." I barely looked at him. My eyes were on that door ahead, the one with the red light above it, the one that separated me from my daughter. "Fine," I said. "Where?" He thrust the clipboard at me. Pages and pages of dense text, legal jargon swimming before my eyes. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the pen. I couldn't focus. The words blurred together, meaningless strings of syllables. All I could think about was Emma's face, so pale against those white sheets, her chest rising and falling with the ventilator's mechanical rhythm. "Sign here," Marcus said, tapping a line with his pen. "And here, and initial here." His voice was calm, professional, the same voice he'd used 1,000 times before in conference rooms and offices. I trusted that voice. I signed. I signed everything. I would have signed away my soul if it meant saving her. The surgery took 9 hours. 9 hours of pacing, praying, bargaining with a God I wasn't sure I believed in. I walked the same stretch of hallway so many times the nurses started recognizing me, offering sympathetic smiles and cups of terrible coffee. I called my CFO, Linda, and told her to cancel everything for the next week. I called Emma's father. We'd been divorced for 18 years, but he had a right to know. He lived across the country now, had a new family, but he took the next flight out. We sat together in that waiting room, not talking, just existing in the same space, bound by the terror of possibly losing our daughter. When the surgeon finally emerged, mask pulled down, exhaustion carved into every line of his face, he said, "She made it. It was close, but she's stable." I collapsed into a chair, sobbing with relief so intense it felt like my body was turning inside out. Emma's father grabbed my hand and squeezed, and for a moment, we were just two people who'd created something beautiful together and had almost lost it. For 3 days, I stayed by her bedside. She was unconscious, sedated, but alive. The machines beeped steadily, monitoring every function, every vital sign. I held her hand, stroked her hair, whispered all the things I'd never said enough. "I love you. I'm proud of you. You're going to be okay." I told her about the first time I held her, how impossibly small she'd been, how terrified I'd been that I'd break her. I told her about the time she was 5 and had insisted on wearing her Halloween costume to church, and how she'd walked down the aisle in full princess regalia, crown and all, completely confident. I told her about every moment of pride, every laugh, every memory that made up the architecture of our relationship. On the 4th day, she woke up. Her eyes fluttered open, confused, disoriented. "Mom?" Her voice was a rasp, barely audible over the hiss of oxygen. "I'm here, baby," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I'm right here." She tried to smile. It was weak, fragile, but it was there. "Thirsty," she whispered. I called for the nurse, who brought ice chips. I fed them to Emma one at a time, watching as she struggled to swallow, her throat raw from intubation. "You scared me," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Don't do that again." She squeezed my hand. "Sorry," she breathed. "Love you. I love you too, baby. So much." Over the next week, she recovered faster than anyone expected. The color returned to her cheeks. She started eating, sitting up, making jokes about the hospital food and the attractive physical therapist who came by twice a day. I was so grateful, so overwhelmingly thankful, that I didn't notice the other things. The way she avoided my eyes sometimes when I asked how she was feeling. The hushed phone calls she took when she thought I wasn't listening. Her voice dropping to a whisper whenever I entered the room. The way Marcus visited every day, always with documents, always talking in low tones by her bedside, always asking me to step out for a moment so they could discuss legal matters privately. I thought nothing of it. Marcus had always been thorough, always thinking ahead. Emma had been seriously ill. Of course there were legal matters to address. Medical directives, power of attorney updates, insurance documents. It made sense. It was responsible. I was grateful he was handling it so I could focus on Emma's recovery. "You're lucky to have him," one of the nurses said, watching Marcus leave after one of his visits. "Not everyone has that kind of support." I nodded, agreeing. Lucky. That's what I thought I was. Emma was discharged after 10 days. The doctors were amazed at her progress. "She's a fighter," the surgeon said, and I felt a swell of maternal pride. Of course she was a fighter. She was my daughter. I took her home to my house, set her up in her old bedroom, the one I'd kept exactly as she'd left it when she moved out. The same posters on the walls, the same books on the shelves. I wanted her to feel safe, loved, cared for. I took a leave of absence from work, something I'd never done, not in 23 years, and devoted myself to her recovery. I cooked her favorite meals, sat with her while she watched TV, helped her with the exercises the physical therapist had prescribed. We fell into a routine. Mornings were quiet, slow. I'd bring her breakfast in bed, scrambled eggs and toast, orange juice, the newspaper. She'd eat, we'd talk about nothing in particular, and then she'd rest while I caught up on emails. Afternoons were for physical therapy and short walks around the neighborhood. She got stronger every day, more steady on her feet. Evenings we'd watch old movies, the classics we'd watched together when she was young. It felt like we were rebuilding something, closing that distance that had grown between us. I thought we were getting back what we'd lost. It was 2 weeks after her discharge when I got the call from Linda, my CFO. "We need to talk," she said. Her voice was tight, controlled, the tone she used when something was seriously wrong. In person. Now. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "What's going on?" "Not over the phone," she said. "Come to the office." I told Emma I had to run an errand, kissed her forehead, and drove to the office with a growing sense of dread. The traffic was thick, and I sat at red lights drumming my fingers on the steering wheel, scenarios running through my head. A problem with a client, a financial issue, a lawsuit. I ran through every possibility except the right one. Linda was waiting in my office when I arrived. She looked tired, stressed, her usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. She slid a folder across the desk without preamble. "These came through this morning," she said. "Ownership transfer documents. Effective immediately. The company is no longer in your name. It's been transferred to your daughter." The words didn't make sense. They hit my ears, but my brain couldn't process them. "What are you talking about? I never—" "Your signature is right there," Linda said, pointing. "Notarized. Legal. Binding." I grabbed the documents, my hands suddenly numb, clumsy. I flipped through them, page after page of legal language, and then I saw it. The pages Marcus had shoved at me in the hospital, the pages I'd signed without reading, desperate, terrified, thinking only of saving my daughter's life. But these weren't surgical authorization forms. This was a complete transfer of ownership. Every share, every asset, everything I'd built over 23 years. The company I'd started in a garage, the company I'd nearly killed myself building, the company that bore my name and my vision and my blood. Gone. Signed away in a moment of panic. "No," I whispered. The office tilted around me. "No, this can't be real." But it was. The signatures were mine. Shaky, rushed, but unmistakably mine. The dates matched. The notary stamp was official. And when I pulled out my phone and called Emma, she didn't answer. Neither did Marcus. I tried again. And again. Straight to voicemail. Both of them. Linda sat across from me, watching, her face tight with sympathy and anger. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "I can't just keep running this place like nothing's changed. Legal sent me these documents. Technically, Emma is now the owner. She has the authority to make decisions, to—" "Don't," I said. my voice sharp. Don't do anything. Not until I figure this out. I stood, grabbing my purse, my keys. The documents were scattered across my desk, pages of betrayal in black and white. Give me 24 hours. Linda nodded. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I'm so sorry. I didn't respond. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I'd scream. I drove to Emma's apartment, my mind a hurricane of disbelief and rage and something worse. A creeping, horrible understanding that I'd been played. That the daughter I'd nearly killed myself to save had used my terror, my love, to steal everything I'd built. The streets passed in a blur. I ran 2 red lights and didn't care. My phone rang. Linda, probably, or someone else from the office, but I ignored it. All I could think about was Emma's face, pale against those hospital sheets, and the way Marcus had stood behind me, pen in hand, waiting. She answered the door looking healthy, strong, nothing like the fragile girl I'd watched fight for her life just weeks ago. Her color was good. She was dressed in nice clothes, makeup on, hair styled. She looked like someone who'd been planning something, not someone still recovering from a near-death experience. Mom, she said, and there was something in her voice. Guilt, fear, resignation. I pushed past her into the apartment. Marcus was there, sitting on her couch, laptop open, papers spread across the coffee table. He stood when he saw me, face carefully neutral, professional. Like this was a business meeting, not the destruction of my entire life. We need to talk, he said. And the audacity of that statement, the sheer, breathtaking audacity, nearly made me laugh. You're damn right we do, I snarled. What the hell did you do to me? Emma stepped between us, hands raised, placating. Mom, please, just listen. Listen. I turned on her and she flinched. You used your own surgery, your own near death, to steal my company. Her face crumpled. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't. Marcus said it was just a precaution, that if something happened to you, the company would be protected. Protected? I laughed, bitter and sharp, the sound harsh in the small apartment. From who? From me? I built that company. Every brick, every contract, every impossible night when I didn't think we'd make payroll. That was me. And you took it. Marcus cleared his throat, stepping forward. If you'll just calm down, we can explain the reasoning. Don't. I held up a hand, my whole body shaking. Don't tell me to calm down. Don't you dare tell me to calm down. You manipulated me, both of you. You waited until I was desperate, terrified, until my daughter was dying, and you took everything. Emma was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks, but I couldn't comfort her. I couldn't even look at her without feeling sick. I trusted you, I said to Marcus. 15 years. I trusted you with everything. My business, my family, my life. And this is what you do? He had the decency to look uncomfortable, shifting his weight, adjusting his glasses. It was a business decision, he said. The company needed stability, and you were... I was what? A bad owner? An incompetent CEO? The woman who built the damn thing from nothing? My voice was rising, echoing off the walls. Or was I just too trusting? Too stupid to realize the people closest to me were plotting behind my back? Emma reached for me. Mom, please. It wasn't like that. I didn't know. You didn't know? I stepped back, away from her touch. You signed the documents, Emma. You knew exactly what you were doing. You just didn't care. That's not fair, she said, voice breaking. I was scared. I'd just woken up from surgery, and Marcus was there telling me about business continuity and succession planning and protecting the family assets. And I didn't. I wasn't thinking clearly. No, I said quietly, coldly. You were thinking very clearly. You just weren't thinking about me. The silence that followed was suffocating. Marcus shuffled his papers, closing his laptop. Emma wrapped her arms around herself, shaking, and I stood there, in the middle of my daughter's apartment, feeling the foundation of my entire world crack and crumble beneath my feet. I'm getting it back, I said finally. All of it. And you. I pointed at Marcus. You're done. You'll never practice law again when I'm finished with you. His expression hardened. You can try, he said, but the documents are legal. Your signature is valid. You signed of your own free will. Under duress, I shot back. While my daughter was dying. Any judge will see that. Will they? Marcus tilted his head, considering. Or will they see a mother who signed standard authorization forms and is now experiencing seller's remorse. These things happen, you know. Family businesses, succession planning. It's complicated. Emotional. I wanted to hit him. The urge was so strong my hands clenched into fists, but I didn't. I turned to Emma instead. I raised you, I said, and my voice cracked despite my best efforts. I gave up everything for you. Every dream, every chance at a normal life, every moment of peace. I did it gladly because you were worth it. And this is what I get in return? She was sobbing openly now, shoulders shaking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. Marcus said. Stop, I interrupted. Stop blaming Marcus. You're an adult. You made a choice. Own it. I walked to the door, hand on the knob, and turned back one last time. Don't call me, I said. Don't come to the house. If you want a relationship with me, you'll reverse this. All of it. Until then, we have nothing to say to each other. I walked out before they could respond. Drove home in a daze, hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. When I got there, I locked the door, pulled every blind shut, and sat in the dark. The silence was suffocating. For 23 years, I'd built something. Not just a company, a legacy. Something that mattered. Something that would outlast me. And my own daughter had taken it. The girl I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for. The girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, who'd drawn crayon pictures that I'd framed and hung in my office, who'd cried on my shoulder through her first heartbreak. She'd taken it all. And Marcus, who I'd welcomed into my home, who I'd trusted with my most important legal matters, who'd sat at my dinner table and laughed at my jokes. He'd orchestrated the whole thing. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every interaction, looking for the signs I'd missed. They'd been there, I realized. Small things. The way Marcus had started asking about my estate planning 6 months ago, suggesting I think about the future. The way Emma had grown distant, distracted, avoiding conversations about the company. The hushed phone calls between them that would end abruptly when I entered the room. I'd dismissed it all as normal family dynamics, normal legal caution. I'd been blind, willfully, stupidly blind. The next morning I called every lawyer I knew. Most of them had worked with Marcus at some point. They were sympathetic but cautious. It's going to be hard, one said. An old colleague who'd handled real estate for me years ago. The documents are legal. Your signature is valid. You'd have to prove coercion or fraud, and that's an uphill battle. Marcus is smart. He'll have covered his tracks. Then we fight uphill, I said. I don't care how hard it is. I'm not letting this stand. He sighed. I'll give you a name. Janet Reeves. She specializes in corporate fraud, family disputes. If anyone can help you, it's her. But I'll warn you, she's expensive, and she doesn't take cases she doesn't think she can win. I called Janet Reeves that afternoon. Her assistant was polite, but firm. Ms. Reeves was very busy, had a waiting list of clients, couldn't possibly see me for at least 3 weeks. Tell her it's about Marcus Holloway, I said. There was a pause. Hold, please. 2 minutes later, Janet Reeves herself was on the line. Marcus Holloway? Her voice was sharp, interested. What did he do? He stole my company, I said. Used my daughter's medical emergency to manipulate me into signing ownership transfer documents. Another pause. Come to my office. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Bring everything. The documents, medical records, any correspondence with Holloway. Everything. Thank you, I said, relief flooding through me. Don't thank me yet, she said. Let's see if we have a case first. Janet Reeves had an office in a downtown high-rise, all glass and steel and intimidating modern art. She was in her 50s, tall, with silver hair cut short and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She looked at me, then at the stack of documents I'd brought and said, Tell me everything. Start from the beginning. I did. I told her about Emma's illness, the desperate rush to the hospital, the nurse's warning that I'd ignored. I told her about Marcus appearing with the clipboard, the rushed signatures, the way I'd signed without reading because all I could think about was my daughter dying. I told her about discovering the transfer, about the confrontation at Emma's apartment, about Marcus's smug confidence that the documents were unbreakable. Janet listened without interrupting, making notes on a legal pad in sharp, precise handwriting. When I finished, she sat back, tapping her pen against her lips. "This is messy," she said, "but it's not impossible. If we can prove Marcus manipulated the situation, used your emotional state to deceive you, we might have a case. But we'll need evidence. Emails, texts, recordings, anything that shows intent, that shows he planned this. I'll find it," I said. "Whatever it takes." She nodded. "Good, because Marcus Holloway is very good at what he does, and what he does is find loopholes. We need to be better." She named her retainer, a number that made me wince, and I wrote the check without hesitation. "One more thing," Janet said as I was leaving. "Your daughter, is she complicit, or was she manipulated too?" I thought about that, about Emma crying in her apartment, saying she didn't know, that Marcus had convinced her. "I don't know," I admitted. "Then we find out," Janet said, "because if she was manipulated, she might be willing to help us. And if she wasn't, well, we need to know that too." I spent the next 3 weeks digging. I went through old emails, thousands of them, searching for any mention of ownership transfer or succession planning. I pulled phone records, looking for patterns in calls between Emma and Marcus. I talked to employees, carefully, subtly, asking if they'd noticed anything unusual, any meetings between Marcus and Emma that seemed odd. And slowly, painfully, a pattern emerged. Marcus had been positioning himself for this for months, maybe longer. He'd started with subtle suggestions to Emma about protecting the family business, conversations about what if something happened to Mom. He'd planted the idea in her head, nurtured it, watered it with fear and obligation and a twisted sense of filial duty. I found an email thread between Marcus and Emma from 4 months before her surgery. "Have you thought more about what we discussed?" Marcus had written. "Your mother isn't getting any younger, and the company represents a significant asset. If something were to happen without proper planning in place, the tax implications alone could be devastating." Emma's response: "I don't know. It feels wrong to talk about this while she's healthy." And Marcus again: "That's exactly when you should talk about it. When emotions aren't running high, when you can make rational decisions. Think of it as protecting her legacy." The word legacy was underlined. He'd used it multiple times throughout their correspondence. Protecting the legacy, preserving the legacy, ensuring the legacy. He'd framed the theft as preservation, the betrayal as love. But the smoking gun came from an email Marcus had sent to Emma 2 days before her surgery. I almost missed it. It was buried in a thread about her medical power of attorney, disguised as routine legal planning. But there it was, in black and white. "We need to move quickly. Once she's at the hospital, emotions will be high. If she signs over power of attorney while she's under stress, while she's focused on your recovery, we can restructure everything. She won't question it. She'll trust me, and she'll trust you. By the time she realizes what happened, it'll be done. Legal, binding, irreversible." And Emma's response, sent at 2 a.m. "Are you sure this is the right thing to do?" And Marcus: "It's the only thing to do. Trust me." She'd trusted him, and she'd betrayed me. I printed everything, created spreadsheets, timelines, documentation trails. I was meticulous, obsessive, because I knew I'd only get one chance at this. If I went to court and failed, that was it. The company would be gone forever. Janet reviewed everything I'd found. She sat in her office, surrounded by my documentation, and for the first time since I'd met her, she smiled. "This is good," she said. "This is very good." He was cocky. He thought he'd covered his tracks, but this... She tapped the email about moving quickly. "This shows intent. Premeditation. This is fraud. So we can win?" I asked, hardly daring to hope. "We can try," Janet said. "I never promise wins. But this, we have a real shot." She filed the lawsuit within 48 hours. The response was immediate and aggressive. Marcus hired a team of lawyers, expensive ones, the kind who specialized in defending the indefensible. They filed motion after motion, trying to get the case dismissed, arguing that the documents were legal, that I'd signed voluntarily, that this was simply a case of buyer's remorse. They painted me as a vindictive mother, someone who couldn't accept her daughter's independence, who couldn't let go of control. They argued that I'd known exactly what I was signing, that the stress of the situation didn't constitute duress, that I was a sophisticated businesswoman who understood legal documents. But Janet was relentless. She deposed Marcus, asking pointed questions about his relationship with Emma, about the timing of their conversations, about why he'd been so insistent on getting signatures during a medical emergency. She deposed Emma, who cried through most of it, insisting she'd thought she was protecting the family, that Marcus had convinced her it was the right thing to do. She brought in medical experts who testified about the psychological state of someone watching their child die, about how trauma affects decision-making, about coercion and undue influence. The case consumed my life. I spent hours with Janet, preparing testimony, reviewing documents, strategizing. The company suffered. Linda did her best to keep things running, but without clear ownership, clients were nervous, employees were uncertain. We lost 2 major contracts. Several key people left for competitors. The thing I'd built was crumbling, and all I could do was watch and fight and hope I could put it back together when this was finally over. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I sat in that courtroom every day, listening to lawyers argue over my life, my work, my relationship with my daughter. Marcus sat at the defense table looking calm, professional, occasionally taking notes or whispering to his attorneys. Emma sat in the gallery and I could feel her eyes on me, but I never looked at her. I couldn't. If I looked at her, I'd break, and I needed to be strong. The prosecution, my side, presented our case methodically. The timeline of Marcus's manipulation, the emails showing premeditation, the medical records showing Emma's condition and my state of mind, expert testimony about coercion and fraud. It was damning. Marcus's lawyers pushed back hard. They called character witnesses who testified that Marcus was a respected attorney, that he'd always acted in his client's best interests. They brought in their own experts who argued that signing documents under stress didn't constitute duress, that I was sophisticated enough to know what I was signing. They implied, subtly, but clearly, that this was about a controlling mother who couldn't let her daughter have autonomy. And then Janet called Emma to the stand. I hadn't known she was going to do this. Emma walked to the witness stand looking small, terrified, younger than her 30 years. She was sworn in, sat down, folded her hands in her lap. Janet approached slowly, her voice gentle. "Ms. Thompson, can you tell us about your relationship with Marcus Holloway?" Emma's voice was barely audible. He was our family lawyer. He'd worked with my mom for years. I trusted him. "And when did he first approach you about transferring ownership of your mother's company?" "About 6 months before I got sick. He said we needed to think about succession planning, about what would happen if something happened to Mom." "And how did that make you feel?" Janet asked. "Scared," Emma whispered. "My mom had always been so strong, so healthy. I'd never thought about her dying, and Marcus made it seem like it could happen any time, like we needed to be prepared." "Did he suggest that you should become the owner of the company?" "Yes. He said it would protect the family assets, that there would be tax advantages, that it was what smart families did." "And did you want to own the company?" Emma looked down at her hands. "No. I didn't know anything about running a business. I had my own career. But Marcus said I wouldn't have to run it, that there were people for that. He said I'd just be the owner on paper, that it would keep everything safe." Janet paused, letting the courtroom absorb that. "Ms. Thompson, when did you sign the transfer documents?" "When I was in the hospital, recovering from surgery." "And did you read them before you signed?" "No." Emma's voice broke. "I was so weak, so tired. Marcus brought them to me and said they were just standard paperwork, that everyone was signing things, that it was all routine. I trusted him." "Did Marcus Holloway tell you that your mother would lose the company if you didn't act quickly?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Yes. He said if I didn't do it, someone else would, that creditors might come after it, or business partners, or—" I don't remember everything he said. I was scared. I'd just woken up from surgery, and he was there every day, telling me what I needed to do, and I trusted him." "And did you know that your mother hadn't read the documents she signed?" "No. I thought Marcus said everyone knew what they were signing, that it was all standard procedure." "When did you realize that your mother didn't know what she'd signed?" Emma was crying openly now. "When she came to my apartment, when she was so angry, so betrayed. That's when I realized." Her voice broke completely. "That's when I realized what I'd done, what Marcus had made me do, and I didn't know how to fix it." Janet let the silence stretch. "Ms. Thompson, did Marcus Holloway manipulate you?" "Yes," Emma whispered. "Do you regret signing those documents?" "Every day. Every single day. No further questions," Janet said. Marcus's lawyers tried to salvage it. They asked Emma why she hadn't come forward sooner, why she'd only changed her story after being sued, whether she was testifying against Marcus to protect herself from criminal charges. But the damage was done. The jury had seen her break down, had heard her admit she'd been manipulated, had watched her take responsibility for her part in it. The judge called a recess. We waited 3 days for the verdict. 3 days of pacing, of not sleeping, of imagining every possible outcome. On the 3rd day, we gathered back in the courtroom. The jury filed in, faces carefully neutral. The foreman stood. In the matter of Thompson versus Holloway, on the charge of fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of undue influence, we find the defendant guilty. I closed my eyes, relief so intense I thought I might collapse. The ownership transfer is hereby voided, the judge said. All assets will be returned to the plaintiff. Mr. Holloway, you will face disbarment proceedings and potential criminal charges for fraud. Marcus's face was stone. He didn't look at me as they led him away. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant, whole. But all I felt was hollow. I'd won. I'd gotten my company back. But I'd lost my daughter. She'd testified against Marcus, yes, but she'd also admitted her part in it. She'd signed the documents. She'd gone along with the plan. And even if she'd been manipulated, even if she'd been scared and confused, she'd still chosen to betray me. That night, alone in my house, I poured a glass of wine and sat in the dark. The victory felt meaningless. What good was a company, an empire, a legacy, if I had no one to share it with? If the person I'd built it all for had tried to take it from me? My phone rang. Emma. I stared at the screen, watching it ring and ring and ring. Finally, I answered. Mom? Her voice was small, broken. The voice of the little girl who used to wake me up in the middle of the night because she'd had a bad dream. I'm here, I said, my own voice thick with unshed tears. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to make this right, but I need you to know. I never wanted to hurt you. I was stupid and scared, and I let Marcus manipulate me, and I hate myself for it. I hate myself for what I did to you. I closed my eyes. You almost destroyed me, I said. Not just the company. Me. You almost destroyed me. I know. She was sobbing now, deep, wrenching sobs that I could feel in my own chest. I know, and I don't know how to live with that. I don't know how to be your daughter anymore. How can you ever look at me without seeing what I did? I don't know, I admitted. Right now, I don't know. I understand, she whispered. I needed you to know I'm sorry, that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make this right, even though I know I can't, even though I know some things are too broken to fix. The silence stretched between us, thick with pain and regret, and the ruins of what we'd once been. Emma, I said finally. Yes? I need time. I need to figure out who you are now, who we are now, because we can't go back to what we were. That's gone. I know, she said. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. I hung up without saying goodbye, sat in the dark, crying for the first time since this whole nightmare had begun, crying for my daughter, for myself, for the trust we'd lost and might never get back. Over the next few months, I rebuilt. Not just the company, though that took work too, restoring confidence, reassuring clients, rehiring some of the people who'd left, rebuilding the reputation that had been damaged by the lawsuit. But myself. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Sarah Martinez, a woman in her 60s who'd heard every story, seen every kind of trauma, and somehow still believed in the possibility of healing. You experienced a profound betrayal, she said during our first session, by the two people you trusted most in the world. That kind of wound doesn't heal quickly, and it doesn't heal if you pretend it didn't happen. I'm not pretending, I said. Aren't you? She tilted her head, studying me. You're back at work. You've thrown yourself into rebuilding the company. But have you dealt with the emotional fallout? The grief? What grief? I asked. I won. I got the company back. You lost your daughter, Sarah said gently. Or at least you lost the daughter you thought you had. That's a death of sorts, and you need to grieve it before you can move forward. So I grieved. I let myself feel the anger, the betrayal, the bone-deep hurt of knowing that Emma had chosen to side with Marcus, even temporarily, even under manipulation. I let myself feel the loss of innocence, The realization that the people closest to you can hurt you most deeply, and slowly, painfully, I started to process it. To understand that Emma's choice didn't erase all the years before it, that she'd been manipulated, yes, but also that she'd been weak, that she'd failed me in a fundamental way, and that I had to decide whether that failure defined her, or whether there was room for something more. 6 months after the trial, Emma sent me a letter. Not an email, not a text, but an actual handwritten letter, delivered to my office. I stared at the envelope for an hour before opening it. "Mom," it began, "I know you said you needed time, and I've tried to respect that. But I also need you to know some things. I've spent the last 6 months in therapy, trying to understand how I let Marcus manipulate me, why I was so willing to believe him, to go along with his plan. And I've realized that I was angry at you, not consciously, not in a way I could articulate, but angry nonetheless. Angry that you'd always been so strong, so successful, so self-sufficient. Angry that the company seemed more important than me sometimes. Angry that I could never live up to what you'd built. And when Marcus came to me with his plan, part of me, a part I'm ashamed of, liked the idea of taking something from you, of having power over you for once. I'm not saying this to excuse what I did. There is no excuse. But I'm saying it because you deserve the truth. And the truth is that I let my resentment, my fear, my weakness, turn me into someone I don't recognize. Someone who hurt the person I love most in the world. The letter continued for 3 pages. She detailed the therapy work she'd been doing, the realizations she'd had about our relationship, the ways she'd failed me not just in the betrayal, but in the years leading up to it. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she wrote at the end. "I'm not sure I deserve it, but I'm asking for a chance to show you that I'm more than the worst thing I've ever done, a chance to rebuild something between us, even if it's different from what we had before. I love you, Mom. I've never stopped loving you, even when I hurt you, and I'll wait as long as it takes." I read the letter 3 times, cried over it, showed it to Dr. Martinez, who said, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to forgive her, to believe that people can change, that she really is sorry. But part of me, part of you is still hurt," Dr. Martinez finished. "Still angry, still scared to trust her again." "Yes, those feelings are valid," she said. "You don't have to choose forgiveness just because she's sorry. Forgiveness is for you, not for her. It happens when you're ready, if you're ever ready. And if you're not, that's okay too." But I thought about it. Thought about Emma as a child, bright and curious and full of love. Thought about the moments we'd shared, the laughter and the tears, and the ordinary, beautiful, mundane moments that make up a relationship. Thought about who she'd been before Marcus, and who she might become after. And I thought about myself, about the person I wanted to be. Did I want to be someone who held on to anger forever? Someone who let one betrayal define the rest of my life? Or did I want to be someone who could acknowledge the hurt, hold space for it, and still choose to believe in the possibility of redemption? It wasn't an easy choice. It wasn't even a choice I could make all at once. But slowly, carefully, I started to consider it. 8 months after the trial, I called Emma. "Can we talk?" I asked. "Yes," she said immediately. "Yes, anytime, anywhere." We met at a coffee shop. Neutral ground, public, safe. She arrived before me, already sitting at a corner table, 2 cups of coffee waiting. She looked different. Older, yes, but also more grounded somehow. Less polished, more real. "Hi," she said as I sat down. "Hi." For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then I said, "I got your letter." "I meant every word," she said. "I know." I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup, feeling its warmth. "I'm not saying I forgive you. I'm not saying we're okay. But I'm saying I'm willing to try. To rebuild something. It won't be what it was. It can't be. But maybe it can be something new." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right." "It's not about making it right," I said, echoing Dr. Martinez's words. "It's about moving forward. About choosing, every day, to be better than the worst thing you've ever done." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I can do that. I want to do that." We talked for 2 hours that day. Not about the betrayal, not about Marcus or the company or the trial. Just about life, about her therapy, her job, the book she was reading. Small things, normal things, the building blocks of a relationship. It wasn't comfortable. There were awkward silences, moments when the hurt rose up between us like a wall, but we pushed through it. We tried. Over the next months, we built something new. Carefully, tentatively, like people constructing a bridge across a chasm. We met for coffee every week, then every few days. We started going to therapy together, working through the resentment and hurt with Dr. Martinez's guidance. Emma started working for the company, not as an owner, not in a position of power, but as an entry-level employee, starting from the bottom, learning the business the way I had, earning her place. "I don't want anything I haven't worked for," she told me. "I don't want you to give me this. I want to deserve it." "Good," I said, and I meant it. It's been a year now since the trial. Emma and I aren't healed, not completely. There are still moments when I look at her and feel the sting of betrayal, when I wonder if I can truly trust her again. There are moments when she looks at me with guilt in her eyes, when I know she's thinking about what she did and hating herself for it. But we're trying. We're choosing, every day, to show up for each other, to be honest, to be vulnerable, to do the hard work of rebuilding trust. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, something is growing between us. Not what we had before. That's gone, and grieving it was necessary. But something new, something harder won, and more honest. The company is stronger than ever. We recovered from the turmoil, and in some ways we're better for it. We implemented new governance structures, new safeguards against fraud. We became more transparent, more careful. And Emma has proven herself. She works harder than anyone, stays late, asks questions, learns. She's not trying to take shortcuts or lean on our relationship. She's earning respect the same way I did, through competence, dedication, persistence. I'm proud of her. I never thought I'd be able to say that again, but I am. Marcus is in prison, 3 years for fraud, with the possibility of more charges pending. His legal career is over, his reputation destroyed. Sometimes I feel a flash of satisfaction about that, but mostly, I just feel sad. Sad that someone I trusted turned out to be so corrupt. Sad that he destroyed his own life along with nearly destroying mine. Dr. Martinez says that's growth, the ability to hold both the anger and the compassion, to acknowledge the hurt, while also recognizing the humanity in the person who hurt you. I've learned things through this nightmare. Hard things, painful things, but important things. I've learned that trust is fragile and precious and must be guarded. I've learned that the people closest to you can hurt you most deeply, but they can also be the ones worth fighting for. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about choosing not to let the hurt define you. It's about believing that people can change, can grow, can become more than their worst moment. And I've learned that love, real love, the kind that lasts, isn't about perfection. It's about choosing, again and again, to see the person beneath the mistakes, to believe that redemption is possible, to hold space for both the hurt and the hope. Emma and I will never have the relationship we had before. That innocent, uncomplicated mother-daughter bond is gone. But what we're building now, this harder, more honest, more intentional relationship, might be stronger because it's built on truth, on the acknowledgement of our flaws and failures, on the choice to love each other not despite what happened, but because of who we're becoming through it. We're both different people now. Scarred, yes. Wiser, I hope. More careful with trust. More intentional with love. And that's okay, because growth often comes through pain. Wisdom often comes through failure. And sometimes, the most beautiful things are the ones that have been broken and carefully, painstakingly put back together. Last week, Emma and I had dinner at my house. She helped me cook, something we used to do when she was young. We chopped vegetables, stirred pots, talked about nothing and everything. And at one point, she looked at me and said, "I know I've said this before, but I need to say it again. I'm sorry for all of it, for the betrayal, for the hurt, for the trust I broke. I'm sorry, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of a second chance." I looked at her, really looked at her, and I saw the little girl who used to fall asleep on my chest, and the woman who'd betrayed me, and the person she was becoming. All of it, all at once. "I know," I said, "and I'm choosing to believe you. Every day, I'm choosing to believe you." She started crying. So did I. And we stood there in my kitchen, holding each other. Two imperfect people trying to build something beautiful out of the wreckage. That's what life is, I think. Not a straight line from hurt to healing, not a simple journey from betrayal to forgiveness. It's messy and complicated and painful. It's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It's choosing hope even when doubt whispers in your ear. It's believing in redemption even when you're not sure it's possible. It's looking at the person who hurt you and saying, I see what you did. I acknowledge the pain. And I'm choosing to believe you can be better. Because the alternative, holding on to anger forever, letting bitterness define you, closing yourself off from the possibility of love, that's not living. That's just existing. And I didn't build a company, raise a daughter, survive a betrayal, just to exist. I want to live. I want to believe that people can change. I want to believe that families can heal. I want to believe that even the deepest wounds can, with time and work and intention, become scars, marks of what you've survived, not open wounds that control you. So that's where I am now, scarred but healing, hurt but hopeful, betrayed but choosing every day to believe in the possibility of redemption. For Emma, for myself, for all of us who've been hurt and are trying to figure out how to love again. It's not easy. Some days, it's impossibly hard, but it's worth it. Because at the end of the day, love, real, complicated, messy, imperfect love, is the only thing that matters. Not companies or legacies or money, just the people we choose to hold close, to forgive, to believe in, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the people in your life, the ones who've hurt you, the ones you've hurt, the ones you're trying to forgive or be forgiven by, share it. Pass it along to someone who needs to hear that redemption is possible, that families can heal, that trust can be rebuilt brick by fragile brick. And if you want more stories like this, stories about real people facing real struggles, stories that remind us we're all just doing our best in an impossibly complicated world, subscribe to this channel. Hit that button. Leave a comment. Tell me your story, because I promise you, someone out there needs to hear it. We're all connected by the same threads of pain and hope and love. And sometimes, the best thing we can do is share those threads, weave them together, and remember that none of us are alone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing, as I'm learning to believe, that people can change, that wounds can heal, that even the deepest betrayals can become, with time and work and grace, the foundations for something stronger. Remember, every smile hides a story. Make sure yours is worth telling, and make sure you leave room in your heart for the possibility that tomorrow can be better than today. That forgiveness, though hard, is possible. That love, though complicated, is always worth fighting for.